Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to say that the VA's testimony in opposition to my bill, HR 7443, is, in my opinion, wholly inadequate and very hard to make much sense of. And I just want to begin by asking you, Ms. Carson. It's been nearly 3 months since the VA eliminated the 48-hour review period, and we have been continuing to hear from VSOs urging that the period be reinstated. So I just want to know to what extent VBA has been having conversations with the VSOs. Are you including them in your considerations of this? Did you include them in your decision-making process before you made this decision?
Thank you for that question. I will I will say that this is not a new discussion with VSOs. We began having discussions at the inception of the Appeals Modernization Act. We worked with VSOs very diligently from 2016 until that act was implemented in 2019. Prior to that, we had a discussion with them that we were thinking about discontinuing that process in 2018. We then later on waited until the 1 year anniversary of implementation of AMA, which they were integrally a part of that process, to then revisit the 48-hour review discontinuation. We notified VSOs in March, and we let them know that we were going to discontinue at the end of April, which is what we did. We also had a briefing with the parties, the congressional parties as well, to let them know, and we let them all know on the same day.
Have you spoken to the VSOs since the decision was reached?
We meet with the VSOs every month. Our USB meets with them every month, and they have direct access to a VSO liaison at our office.
And so I'm assuming that they've told you that they disagree with this decision.
Yes, they have told us.
Okay. Well, I just want to establish that you've been fully aware that these organizations that exist solely for the purpose of benefiting our veterans have come to you, have told you that this is a decision that's going to make it harder for them to get the veterans the benefits they are owed. You're aware of that. You've done this anyway. You now have a bipartisan bill, bicameral legislation to try and restore this review period. And your argument against it is that it is legally suspect, that the review period is legally suspect, something that a process that has been ongoing for some time that is now trying to be codified, as Chairwoman Luria said. And now you're saying that it's legally suspect. What's the basis for that argument?
So I would like to first and foremost state that it's a legacy process, as you've already indicated. The process of a pre-review has been going on since
But what would be
1957.
legally suspect about us as members of Congress creating now and codifying this process? What would be legally suspect about it?
It is because with your codification, you also have some unintended consequences that because you don't implicate whether or not the representative has to have access to VBA systems, you say all representatives. There are some representatives that don't electronically access our systems because they don't have the equipment. You also you say nothing about the
Now that would
pro se
make it.
veteran,
No,
the veteran
hold on. Stop there.
to
Stop there, Ms.
represent
Carson.
him or
Ms. Carson,
herself, which is their own rights. So
Madam
there's
Chair,
some
I'm reclaiming my
challenges
time.
with the
Madam Chair, I'm
bill.
reclaiming my time. I'm reclaiming my time, Madam Chair. Uh, you're speaking to an attorney now and a member of Congress, and you're testifying that the inclusion of the language you just said makes the bill legally suspect. I mean, that you're on some pretty rocky ground there, and so I want to give you a chance to take that back or to clarify it.
So I will clarify that I never used the words legally suspect. You did,
That's
sir.
what your testimony
And
says.
I would
That's
say
what the
that
testimony here
I'm
says.
not.
No, the testimony says, I'm reclaiming my time because I'm the one questioning here. The testimony says that the VBA, this is no longer appropriate and is legally suspect. This practice is no longer appropriate and legally suspect. That's what the testimony that you've submitted to our committee says. So I just want to be clear about that. I'm going to move on to my next question. And because I think we've established that the rationale is nonsense. Okay, the rationale to oppose it is nonsense. But I want to ask, what? Why would we not want to? Number one, allow our veterans to have some expert help in getting review of their claims and increase more appeals, adding more appeals on the back end instead of getting these claims right on the front end. This makes no sense to me. I mean, I don't understand what the rationale would be to try and not have as good as possible and as reviewed as possible of claims on the front end so that you don't have as much work to do on the back end appealing claims that maybe had mistakes when they were submitted.
We don't disagree that we want claims to be done well and accurately, but we do believe that with our national quality system and with our Appeals Modernization Act, we do have the mechanism upon which VSOs can work with us. And again, we've taken nothing away with regards to their representational aspects of being able to submit information and to clarify records at any time during the claims process.
Okay. Well, I disagree with the testimony that's been submitted. I'm not sure what you know lawyer wrote this, but I disagree with their legal interpretation of our ability as a committee to create this process. And I disagree with the reasoning we've been given today. And I just want to say that we should all be, from the committee to the VSOs to VBA, we should all be working on the same side to try and make sure that as many eligible veterans as possible get their benefits as quickly as possible, and that we provide as much help as we can to make sure that happens. And for the life of me, I can't understand why we would want to make it harder for that to happen. And I know my time is close to being expired. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll yield back.